Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the EMEA Engineering Impact Awards. Now, before I even introduce myself, let me tell you how proud I am to be stood here presenting to a room that is packed with modern-day heroes. So whether your work involves gaining a better understanding of the world around us, or you're engineering the world that never was, or you're preparing the innovators of tomorrow, everybody in this room is solving society's problems in the way that, frankly, only engineers can. I'm gushing a bit up here, but I do mean every word. Now, my name is Richard Roberts, and one of my many roles at NI is leading our case study program. And this is where we invite engineers and scientists to tell us how they've solved pressing or complex challenges by combining the NI platform with their own elite domain expertise. And as you guys are going to see tonight, the results are just astounding. Now, it does actually feel rather apt that we're hosting this ceremony on this particular date because, well, throughout the evening, you're quite likely to see the London skyline lit up by glorious explosions of colour. Now, I'd love to be able to tell you that I personally laid on all those fireworks to honour your engineering achievements, but as the Brits in the room will know, well, remember the 5th of November. It's actually a special holiday in the UK, and one that has surprisingly dark origins. So get this, it's actually our annual celebration of the death of Guy Fawkes, a man who plotted to blow up the Houses of Parliament in a bid to assassinate King James I. Anyway, let's get back to an altogether more wholesome annual celebration, the EMEA Engineering Impact Awards. It was a bumper year for the awards. We received almost 100 entries from 16 different countries spanning 3 different continents. And it wasn't just the quantity of submissions that impressed us this year. Our cross-functional judging panels unanimously agreed that the quality of entries this year was off the charts. I actually got to listen in to a lot of those judging meetings, and there were lively discussions, there were passionate debates, and massive, heated arguments. I'd never actually heard my colleagues speak to each other like that before, and I loved it. The fact that any of our finalists are here tonight is because your work ignited such fierce passion within our industry judges that they were willing to fight for you. And the key takeaway here is that it doesn't matter tonight really whether you're a winner or a finalist, because each and every one of of you guys tonight face stiff competition within your award category. And just making it to this ceremony is already a triumph in itself. And so on that note, ladies and gents, how about a huge round of applause for all of tonight's incredible finalists. Good work. Okay, so after dinner, I'm going to be handing the stage over to a series of award presenters, and each will deliver a brief overview of the winner and finalist within their category. And damn, those categories are diverse. I think there are very few ceremonies that truly showcase the breadth and diversity of the technical disciplines quite like the Engineering Impact Awards. So brace yourself, ladies and gents, it is going to be a jam-packed night of incredible stories. Now, we do have a bit of time before dinner is served, so I thought I'd use it to explain in my own weird, meandering way why tonight's finalists not only deserve to be celebrated, but they absolutely need to be celebrated. So I'm pretty sure that you will all be very aware of the industry skills gap and the global deficit of engineers. Well, earlier this year, Engineering UK released a report that documented the state of engineering. And the numbers here were specific to the UK, but I'm led to believe that similar figures can be seen all across Europe, the Americas, and most of the developed world. The report did a great job of highlighting the importance of engineering and to the economy, where you can see, the engineering contributed 26% of the UK's total GDP, which is pretty incredible for a country that's better known for banking than finance. But perhaps more amazingly, the report showed that each time an engineer is employed, it opens up 1.74 other jobs, either through the supply chain or through direct employment. So the report was pretty upbeat, but there was a very clear message. We need to produce a hell of a lot more engineers. Now, this is partly due to strong positive growth within industry, but also an aging engineering workforce. It's been suggested that before long we may start retiring more engineers than we're graduating, which is a fundamental problem for us all. And the numbers are significant. We need to double the number of engineers entering industry, otherwise the British economy will forfeit a staggering £27 billion a year. So this is serious stuff. And of course it's not unique to the UK. According to the World Economic Forum, this is the top 15 most sought after, in-demand professionals in the world. And 7 of the top 10 are engineers. Clearly, we need to inspire more engineers. And I'm adamant that one of the best ways we can achieve this is by uniting and collectively tackling the mass public misconception of what it means to do engineering. Because the truth is, for a huge portion of the public, they've got no idea what we do. And their only reference to engineering is, well, there's an engineer coming around to install broadband at your house, or there's a mechanic servicing your car, or construction engineers are refitting the office next door. Now, to really prove that point, here's another recent report, this time from the Royal Academy of Engineering. And they ran a really interesting survey where they asked 6,000 non-engineers to select from a list which words they would most associate with the term engineering. And by a long, long way, the most frequently chosen words related to construction and mechanics, which, as the report states, associates our profession with building stuff and fixing stuff. And this sentiment is echoed by a whole bunch of other surveys in which the general public is asked to select which symbolic image best represents various professions. And I thought I would quiz you guys on this right now, okay? So hopefully you've had a couple of welcome drinks and, and you're willing to shout out some answers. Okay, so first off then, let's start with a nice easy one. Which iconic symbol do you think the public most associate with a chef?
Chef's hat.
Yeah, indeed. That famous French chef's hat. And honestly, I can't say I've ever actually seen a chef wearing one, but I don't think it's a big issue here because although cuisine and quality vary, a chef's role is pretty easy to define. So good. Okay, next up then, I'm looking for the 2 top symbols most associated with the medical profession. Now, I've given you the first one, the Red Cross, the inversion of the Swiss flag, because I figured it was cheating a little bit. It's a symbol that was invented to represent this profession. But what was the other thing that most people associate with doctors?
Stethoscope.
Wow, it won! Indeed, the humble stethoscope. And although, of course, there are lots of different specialists within the medical industry, they will all ultimately use the stethoscope. It's an easy means of monitoring one of our most important vital signs. So good, no arguments there. Right, time to bring it a little closer to home then. Ladies and gents, I'm looking for the 3 symbols. I'm looking for the 3 symbols most associated with science. Any thoughts? Test tube, I heard that from many. Okay, test tubes, conical flasks, good.
Microscope.
The microscope, lovely stuff. So microscope and test tubes, one more. The atom, bravo. Wow, that was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be. Indeed, but yeah, so, and truthfully, I love these. And not only do I think they cover the 3 main physical sciences, but they all evoke a sense of wonder and discovery that is the driving force behind science. So good. Science fares well. Unlike the next profession. Ladies and gents, what are the 2 symbols most associated with engineering?
Spanner.
The wrench, bravo, in one. And one more?
Hard hat.
The hard hat, I heard it over there. The wrench and the hard hat. Oh, my God, sinks. And this, of course, completely confounds the fact that the public purely associate us with construction and mechanics. And to further highlight this misconception, let's do another quick experiment of our own. Let's ask the hive mind that is Google to show us an engineer. Put simply, I did a Google image search for the word engineer, and, well, frankly, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to spot a pattern emerging there. And it's not a good one. Now, I do suppose, begrudgingly, that you could argue that the hard hat at least suggests the practical nature of what we do. But I think it is a fundamental problem that our entire profession is being defined by a piece of health and safety equipment. That is pretty uninspiring and massively misleading, right? We've got a room packed with a big, broad range of engineers here tonight. Generally, can I have a show of hands? Who here regularly wears a hard hat for their day? How about that? Not a single, not one. Oh, there is one. Thank you. Okay, one. And that, guys, is the big problem here, right? It's that engineering is far, far broader than the hard hat could ever suggest. And so also, actually, as a side note, I did spot another interesting trend in the image results. Man, us engineers, we love pointing at stuff. I'm sure you'll all agree. We spend around 80% of our time just looking thoughtful and pointing into the middle distance. It's ridiculous. And as Joe Foster of the Institute of Engineering and Technology points out, for the sake of our global economy, it's imperative that we need to address these outdated ideas of what engineers look like. Here, of course, she's not just talking about hard hats and high-vis jackets. She's also speaking about the deeply unfortunate perception that engineering is purely a career path for men. But at least I'm kind of hopeful that the world of engineering is working hard to try and address that one. Ultimately, though, I do think it's really sad that in an era where technology plays a pivotal role in every waking moment of our daily lives, that the general public don't really understand what we do. But I tell you what was worse than the words that were associated with engineering. It was the words that were not. Almost none of the 6,000 people asked chose the words design, test, creativity, and innovation. I mean, that is heartbreaking. All of those words are painfully missed, but innovation, there is no profession that deserves the word innovation more than engineering, and I can prove that to you now. So, the golden age is a metaphorical term that defines a period in history where a particular field of human endeavour flourished. A period that was dense with great accomplishments, and the blueprints that would define that endeavour are laid out. So let's start with the golden age of pop music. The mid-60s to the late 70s, it was during this period every pop musical genre was defined, from hip-hop and rock to dance and funk. And yes, between grunge and grime and garage, a few more subgenres have been defined since, but they're all derivative of the genre-defining records from this little window. And also, Rolling Stone magazine, should I say, hosts what many regard as the definitive top 100 list of the best albums of all time. And 72% of those occurred during this time period. Okay, next let's talk movies. We are living through the era of the Hollywood remake. We've already had Beauty and the Beast, It, Ghostbusters, Ben-Hur, Blade Runner, Jungle Book, and there are loads more coming next year. Dirty Dancing, The Crow, The Bodyguard, The American Werewolf in London, Short Circuit. I'm actually kind of looking forward to that one. But Hollywood execs are terrified of losing money, and it is absolutely curbing their innovation. 1929 to 1945 was the most fertile period in American film, a time where the studio system peaked, genres were established, and character archetypes defined. And finally then, the golden age of English literature, the Elizabethan era, where Philip Sidney and Thomas Wyatt published their greatest sonnets, and theatre flourished under Christopher Marlowe, Thomas Nash, and of course the greatest writer in the English language, William Shakespeare. Hell, Shakespeare alone invented 1,700 words that we still commonly use today, even though most of them are way too rude for for me to share with you guys now. But there are, of course, loads more examples of how the apex of creative output and innovation has long passed for many different fields of human endeavour. But engineering, my friends, we are living and working through the golden age of engineering. Now, of course, we are all stood on the shoulders of giants, but fundamentally, each game-changing engineering innovation simply accelerates our progress towards the next game-changing innovation. And as such, the pace of technological progress increases exponentially. As the much celebrated futurist Ray Kurzweil once said, the 21st century is going to be the equivalent of 20,000 years of progress over the previous century. And incredibly, this, well, I guess kind of interestingly, engineers, we are kind of victims of our own success, because this rate of innovation actually makes us pretty bad at predicting the future. And I'll show you what I mean. Let's take a quick trip back in time to the 1980s. So let's take a look at a forward-looking technology magazine called Byte. Now, how about this one from 1983? It shows quite a familiar scene to us today. People working on planes, but wowzers, they look more like old school oscilloscopes than they do laptops. And how about this one? A phone with a screen capable of sending text-based messages. It happened, but it didn't look like that. But this is my favourite. Isn't that glorious? And again, Byte were fundamentally correct. Today, millions of people carry around processors on their wrist, but a text-orientated interface, that tiny, tiny floppy disk drive, and that unusable QWERTY keyboard. And look, can you even see the curvature on the screen? That, my friends, is a cathode ray tube. Just wonderful. But you know what? Engineers don't need to predict the future, because engineers create it. And as Ray Kurzweil predicted, the 21st century has already yielded unprecedented progress. Machine learning and artificial intelligence, 3D printing and the maker movement, smartphones and 5G, the Internet of Things and cloud computing, autonomous vehicles and the smart grid, all in recent history, and the 21st century has barely begun. We are unquestionably living through the golden age of engineering, but here's the thing, our children will live through the golden age of engineering, and their children, and their children's children, because thanks to this ever-accelerating curve of innovation, the golden age of engineering is always now, whenever now may be. And there is no other field of human endeavour that can claim that. And so, ladies and gents, I say without hesitation, it's not just that the word engineering deserves the word innovation, it's that engineering is innovation. And it breaks my heart that our society and our children don't recognise this. Now, we all know that the mass media and the popular press don't really hold engineers aloft as the heroes that they truly are. And instead, it's more likely to condition our children to want to be footballers and celebrities and X Factor contestants. And so it doesn't represent engineering as well as we might like. You know, for example, like a lot of you guys, I was super excited about the discovery of the Higgs boson on many different levels. But not least because I thought it might be the moon landings for the millennials, the feat of engineering and science that could inspire a generation. Now, the press, of course, hoisted the discovery aloft as a game-changing scientific discovery, which it was. But engineering and science have a beautiful symbiotic relationship, and the Higgs boson would have never been discovered if it wasn't for the technologies provided by engineers. And in fact, CERN employs 10 times more engineers than it does scientists. Ladies and gentlemen, well, you know, and did I see the word engineering mentioned in any of the press coverage? No, I did not. Not once. And ladies and gentlemen, we cannot afford for engineers to be the unsung heroes for any longer. And so I'm afraid it is down to us, professional engineers, to tackle the mass public misconception of what it means to do engineering. Now, I'm a big supporter of STEM, so science, technology, engineering and maths, STEM outreach programs. I've supported the likes of the first LEGO League, the Big Bang Fair, and several IET lecture series. Well, do you guys know what I do? During every outreach presentation I deliver, I talk about you guys. I talk about our Engineering Impact Award finalists, highlighting the incredible and game-changing things that NI's customers make possible. And it is so effective. When explained at the right level, your work blows the minds of these potential future engineers. Every time I describe one of our Impact Award finalists, I can see children's eyes widening and light bulbs turning on around the room. And this year, in this room with us right now, we have some of the most inspiring, complex, and high-impact applications I have ever seen. Seriously, each one of tonight's finalists and the innovations that you've produced has the power to inspire swathes of future engineers. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is my call to arms. Please do enjoy tonight's ceremony. You've absolutely earned it. But do not let the celebrations end tonight. Go forth and tell your stories, because this is bigger than you and me. This is bigger than NI. This is even bigger than the dozens of prestigious companies and institutions represented here tonight. Because this is about our society, our economy, it's about our planet, and it's about our future. Thank you very much.